there is so much value in putting something out that doesn't work. There's tremendous value in us making a decision that goes completely against the grain of everything. Look, if we had a magic button that we could push, well, you push this much money into marketing and you get that much out of marketing, we'd all be sipping pina coladas on the beach right now.
I'm super excited for today's guest. A lot of folks watching are familiar with Robert Rose. He's, first of all, a former marketing operator, executive. He started the Content Marketing Institute about 15 years ago with Joe Pulizzi. And for the last decade or so, he's been leading Seventh Bear with his partner, Kathy McKnight, providing modern marketing guidance to businesses of all sizes. I had a chance to meet Robert as we were kind of building Audience Plus, and honestly learned so much from him, both in that limited discussion we had, but of course, just following him online and all his great content. So let me introduce to the stage Robert Rose. Hey man, how's it going?
Howdy. I'm so happy to be here. I've been a big fan for a long time. So long time listener, first time guest, I guess you'd say. Yeah, for sure.
Likewise, it's kind of weird that like our second time formally talking is live here with people watching
Exactly.
or whoever's watching the recording. So,
well, we've both been a little bit busy, so
that's
so
true.
It's fair,
that's true.
to be fair.
Totally. But like I mentioned genuinely in the intro, I've learned so much from you and just the body of work that you've kind of created and put out into the world through the Institute. And so, thank you for just continuing to educate all of us through all of the changes. And we're entering a new season now where it feels like everything's changing even more. Curious to just start with just the high level, just as you've been thinking and observing around the changes around content marketing in particular. What are you seeing? What's the sort of like state of the union today?
Well, it's interesting because, certainly, and I know we'll get to it. AI has sucked all the oxygen out of the room. But it's interesting. If you look even higher level than that, I worry a little bit about so I've been a marketing guy for 30 years now. So I've got the gray hair now to show for it. So I worry a little bit about our practice of where we sit in 2025. And the numbers that I see that disturb me the most aren't about AI, aren't about job replacement, aren't about all that stuff. It's more about how many young people are leaving the practice. They're leaving marketing really early on in their careers because, and you said this well in your introduction, where we really have over the last 20 years as digital has sort of entered the ecosystem, if you will, become button pushers, right? It's in so many ways, performance marketing has become the sort of myopia of the focus of so many businesses, startups and big businesses alike, where it's about how do we really transform marketing into this pushing buttons, optimizing to the nth degree, making sure that every word is, SEO optimized, conversion optimized, A/B tested, multivariate tested, figuring out the way that this ad word is connecting to this thing. And it's all basically just gamifying and playing a video game with technology. And what we've lost in the process is our real focus on creativity, telling great stories, telling these amazing, wonderful, differentiating, competitive advantage creating stories. And the creativity has really been lost in so many ways. The innovation, the brand, the idea of building trust with audiences, which you have spent literally the last few years so focused on. And so I worry a little bit that that sort of atmosphere of marketing where it's literally treated as just something that can be mechanized and turned into this machine. And so many people turn it into and literally call it their marketing machine is in some ways like losing our strategic edge, like losing literally the creative edge. What I'm hopeful for, and I'm sure again, we'll get into it, is as we can start deprecating and or delegating some of that push button work to technologies like AI, that we can get back to it, that we can get back to slowing down and doing those kinds of things. And so it's sort of, I think we're in a really interesting time in history where technology and the sort of, meeting of technology and the human creativity has finally reached a point where that's forcing us to make decisions, uncomfortable decisions.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you put it that way too, because as you're talking about just constructing the marketing machine, I almost had this like flashback to being in a CFO meeting in seat as a CMO, and they're like, "Look, build the dollars in, dollars out model, and we'll give you more marketing budget
Right.
or whatever." A shiver went down my back as you were telling the
Yeah.
story, and it's funny because not funny at all actually, but it's interesting in that you could be a marketer in 2025 and not be self-identified as a creative person. You can like that we've
Right.
almost like taken the art of marketing and replaced it completely with the science, over rotated. And in the executive room, in the boardroom, we're like celebrating that and championing it and keeping execs accountable to it in some cases.
In so many
Wild.
ways, that it's I mean, look, I did the 2 rounds of Silicon Valley funding, the startup, and had those meetings. So I feel your pain. But by the way, that dollars in, dollars out algorithm has been something that CFOs, CEOs, and those of us not in marketing have been chasing for 100 years, and we've never been good at it.
Yeah,
It has never been something that was actually attainable. Why we continue to try and strive for it, sort of look, if we had a magic button that we could push, well, you push this much money into marketing and you get that much out of marketing, we'd all be sipping pina coladas on the beach right now.
totally. Yeah,
So
exactly.
it is not figure outable, right?
Yeah,
It is half art, half science, always will be, always has been. And
yeah.
that's the critical piece. And you're so right. We have over scienced and over teched it to death.
Totally. Well, you wrote an article recently for CMI called "Real Beats Perfect." Or sorry, "Real Beats Perfect in Content
Yeah.
Marketing." I can read, I promise.
Yeah.
And honestly, it really struck a chord with me. And so I wanted to just unpack a few things that you were kind of talking about in that article.
Sure.
The first is you use the phrase "the soul of marketing," and I'm curious, just what is, in your definition, the soul of marketing? And you go on to say that brands, we've started to kind of lose our soul, and I'm curious why.
Well, it goes right to what we were just talking about, right? Which is the soul of marketing is the the way I like to think about it is the diversity of my team. In other words,
Hmm.
people is, so it directly correlates to people and their ability to bring their creative selves to work. And so, and their science brain too.
Sure.
But the key there is that it is the soul of the diversity of the point of views of various people that
Hmm.
bring the soul to marketing. This is the half art part of it, right? And
Right.
in so many ways, what we're doing, the narrative right now around technology and especially generative AI is we can reduce team size and
Yeah.
basically and say, okay, well, we can reduce it down to, sort of at its quintessential sort of tech bro core, right? You picture some one guy sitting with a headset on, sort of
Yeah.
a virtual reality headset on, managing a bunch of AI agents,
Right.
on vibe coding and vibe marketing and sort of, running an entire marketing department. And there's no soul in that.
No.
Congratulations, you've just basically reduced your entire marketing strategy down to a single point of failure, which is this guy's ability to play a video game. And
Yeah.
so that's obviously an extreme, but the point being, when we're looking at AI as a replacement for the human touch on content, on our campaigns, on our brand, what we end up doing is reducing it down and sort of smoothing it out to basically the least, the least interesting, right?
Yeah.
The least provocative, the least, the safest bet, the most, there is so much value in putting something out that doesn't work. There is, when you think
Hmm.
about the human soul and keeping it real versus perfect,
Yeah.
there's tremendous value in us making a decision that goes completely against the grain of everything that the patterns, right? Which AI is not going to do, right? So, in other
Right.
words, if I'm a marketing VP, I may go, let's try this with the idea that it's going to fail so that we
Hmm.
learn what actually our audience cares most about.
Right.
And so
Right.
that soul has really, in so many marketing strategies, left the building
Yeah.
because you look at something even as innocuous and stupid as the Sydney Sweeney campaign, right? So
Hmm.
agree or disagree, basically what you saw was in that campaign was a lack of diversity in the team in the room, right? Somebody said, this is a great idea. We should do this. There weren't enough team members or opinions being considered in
Mm,
that. And I'll bet the technology said it was a great thing to do too. It was very
mm,
clever, very, the double entendre, whatever.
right.
But the team in the room might go, wait a minute, let's hold up on that just for a second and ask, what is it we're really doing with that with people and they might care about? And those decisions are leaving the building as quickly as
Wow.
AI is entering the building.
Very interesting. Yeah, I had I think a complementary take in many ways to, or at least my inference for kind of what you were, how you were thinking about defining soul.
Yeah.
Um, and it might be an interesting build this idea of authentic AI, or
Yeah.
lack thereof.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I feel what I'm seeing a lot of is companies launching products for the sake of products, or AI
Yes.
experiments getting
100%.
funded at the earliest stages or whatever as a gold rush. But these are products that are
Yeah.
just feature function. There is no heart. There's no emotional core. There's
So true.
no um, authenticity or trust building that I'm perceiving. At least it's like, hey, we just launched, um, phone.ai. We just had
Right.
$20 million seed from A16Z. Here's our awesome launch video that everyone seems to be doing now.
Exactly.
And like, why? Like, I understand what, but give me the heart of it. Give me why. Like, inject some meaning into the story that you're telling. And that's one thing that I think I haven't seen as much, or at least it feels a little bit like a dying art in B2B in this wave. Not a dying art, but misrepresented in this wave of startups that are starting to come to life today.
I think I couldn't agree with you more. It is such a great point. It's like you end up with this situation, and this has been arguably a problem with the SaaS sort of tech really initiative since arguably since 2008 since the crisis,
Mm,
right, of 2008 2009,
yep.
when and which is, by the way, when I left SaaS. Like, I was doing software as a service and cloud computing in the early 2000s. It was like, I would say, we were cloud before cloud was cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so our goal back then was to try and figure out, like, sell people on the idea of cloud computing and software as a service. And now, you know cut to 2013, 2015, 2018, even 20, and now it's like, so much of the technology is literally an interface built on a database, right? I mean, it's
Hmm.
like there's
Right.
nothing interesting there. And it's, and now it's like basically literally a UI built on top of ChatGPT. You know what I
Right.
mean? And it's like there's no soul there, there's no passion there, there's nothing there other than sort of a wrapper and basically, some shiny paper that sort of covers the package. There's
Right.
nothing behind it. There's no thinking. There's no soul, to your point,
Right.
and there's nothing that's really worth paying attention to, unless it just grabs our attention. It's like we've gotten to the point where it's so funny. I wrote this piece. This was a couple of months ago, where I said basically we have gotten so wrapped around the axle of moving fast and breaking things, and now we're sort of looking around wondering why everything is freaking broken.
Yeah.
And it's in so many ways it's been this sort of rush into shipping. Just, the just ship it
Just ship
mentality
it.
is like, okay, now if we can get a quick turnaround and we can get a quick flip and flip the house and make it look nice and give it curb appeal, and somebody will buy it.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. But the good news is, authentic AI is here to save us, because we're just going to
Yeah.
deploy that agent. It's going to do the rest. It'll come
Yeah.
up with a story.
Oh
It'll be
my God.
contextually relevant. It'll build
Yeah.
trust and relationships. I love that you picked a bone with that a little bit in the, obviously being facetious for those listening. It's like, should we be outsourcing that function to compute?
Yeah, well, the headline is no, of course. I mean, but it's more nuanced than that. Like, lest I come across as someone who hates AI and doesn't think there's any use for it. I do absolutely think
Yeah.
there's a wonderful use for it. I think in so many ways the introduction of AI is, so like we talked about before, the narrative with AI right now seems to be this idea that it can help us reduce headcount,
Right.
create more efficiency, create the dollars to, into dollars out sort of algorithms and all those kinds of things. And of course, here's the thing that's getting lost in so many ways. Like if you believe that the innovation that is generative AI for the most part is AI broadly speaking, but generative
Sure.
AI for the most part in marketing, if you believe that it can help us do the same amount of work or better work with fewer people, you have to also it's absolutely a corollary. It's a law that you must
Yeah.
also believe that AI can help us do deeper or better or more differentiated work with the same or more people. And
Mm.
so I'm wondering why, as a business culture, we're so willing to accept the former and so unwilling to
Oh,
fight for the
interesting.
latter, right? Why are
Yeah.
we so unwilling to use the introduction of the innovation that is AI as an invitation for us to slow down, do deeper
Mm.
creative work,
Yes.
basically do things that use AI to differentiate what we're doing. And actually, like, and I use the example, I write every week. I have a deadline every week. I have an article every week. My blog post used to take me, before AI, my blog post would take me, maybe 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours
Sure.
to write it. My blog post now, and I use AI a lot, now takes me 5, 6, 7 hours. Like, it takes me
Oh,
longer
wow.
to use AI for a blog post. And the reason is because I'm using the tool to really pressure test my ideas, to go out and look for the
Interesting.
gaps, to actually look for the patterns of things that are kind of cliche, look for the things that
Mm.
I can. So everything that comes back from AI to me has a question mark at the end of it. Like, is this right? And I then
Oh,
make the
cool.
determination of whether it's right or not and make it me better because of it.
So interesting. Yeah. And I guess I too want to make sure I'm not signaling an anti-AI
Yeah,
message.
right. Yeah.
I very much believe that this is going to be a net positive, especially again for the efficiency in the transactional side of the business.
Yeah.
Really
I
interesting.
mean, you get to this point where, so the promise, right? So the narrative around the marketing of Gen AI right now is, let AI do become your assistant, right? Let the AI do the button pushing and
Yeah.
leave the deeper creative work to you. But of course, that message gets completely sideswiped and turned around by the time it actually reaches the CFO or the CEO's office, who is basically, they're coming around saying, well, no, it can do that work too, right? And so what
Yeah.
ends up happening is in these AI implementations, what you start hearing about actual implementations is sort of, the other term that I find very funny is the whole human in the loop thing, right?
Right.
Which is basically transforming marketing humans into error correcting and error checking on AI, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, no, you're actually reducing the role at that point. Like, it's crazy making, because what we're saying at one point is to say, hey, no, AI is going to give us all this time to do this great creative work, and it does, but
Yeah.
the implications at the business level become like, well, no, how do we just keep humans pressing the buttons and checking the work of the AI, but let AI do all the strategic work and all the strategy and all the creative and all of the brand and all of that, because the humans are really just there to make sure that it's okay. Like,
Right.
it's like, that's, boy, if we fall into that trap, we will have deserved it.
Totally. Totally. Well, look, you mentioned this idea of slowing down, which I think has implications both personally and professionally here. But you're writing a book called Valuable Friction, or you have written a book.
I've written a book.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
past
coming
tense.
out.
Yeah, for sure.
When's the launch date?
It's out now. Yeah, it
It's
is out
out.
now. Yes, I have not,
Amazing.
like, done a big, like, huge announcement about
Yep.
it. So it's so you not knowing is
Well,
perfectly normal. But I did
yeah.
actually officially sort of make it available. I just spoke at an event last week and made it
Nice.
made it
Awesome.
available there. So yes, it is out now. It's called Valuable Friction, and it is really about the idea that it's everything we've been talking about, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that where we sit in business and in life today. It's like, it's not just about business, it's about our
Totally.
life and our culture, and being a student in today's world, being a
Yes.
job seeker in today's world, being a family in today's world. Is We are so wrapped around the axle of speed and
Yeah.
convenience as the overriding value of family, business, culture, and sort of seeking work, that we have forgotten what it means to really value things that are hard, that
Yeah.
take time, that take slow. And it's not necessarily about always be moving slower or always moving faster. The difference is the friction, in other words, the
Mm,
difference. And the metaphor that I often like to use is the most valuable thing that you can hear on a basketball court is the squeak of the shoe, right? Because that
yeah.
means people are moving and pivoting quickly, and they're moving and pivoting quickly for purpose and consciously and purposely. And so if you hear the squeak of the shoe in your own work, whether you're moving fast or slow, it doesn't matter. It's basically creating that spark, that conscious spark in your head to actually move at the appropriate speed that you need to get the creative human work that you need to get done is
Yeah.
is is a better approach to life. And it's basically a little bit of a man. It's a short book. It's a big idea in a short book.
Well, I've just posted in just the build up to our show a few kind of personal anecdotes online around friction. I think Vogue had an article this week talking about how the faster we're accelerating, the more we're sort of losing our humanity. So it feels like even mainstream kind of
Yeah.
publications are picking up on this broader kind of cultural moment that we're living in. I'm of course, like keeping an eye on tech news and everything. We're talking about like 996. We should be working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week.
Oh my
Companies
God.
are it's. Have you heard of this 996 thing? It's like
No.
making its rounds now. And then it just
Really? I mean, that is just that's just insane. That's just
yeah.
that's just an insane. It reminds me so much. Remember the old. This was back in 2010, 2011, when HubSpot used to come out with these blog posts all the time. Tuesday at 8 a.m. is the best time to blog,
Oh,
right?
to post
You know,
to post.
and it's like, yeah, Tuesday at 8 a.m. is the best time to blog until you actually say Tuesday at 8 a.m. is the best time to blog. When of course now it's not anymore. It's like it's just an
Yeah.
insane, stupid template to even think about.
For sure. It got some retweets though. I think it
Oh,
got
I'm sure it did. I mean,
some
hustle
news
porn
cycles.
gets
Yeah,
all the retweets, right?
for sure. But what's behind that in your mind? For, whether it's 996 or just this like cult of speed that is driving, um, certainly from a commerce perspective, maybe the Silicon Valley ethos, but to your point, even
It
I think
is.
just broadly in life, like what do you think's behind it?
It is. It's been something that's happening over the last 20 years. Really, is digital. When I
Okay.
go back and I did the research for the book, one of the things that I really noticed was, this is not a new idea, by the way, right? So whether it's Vogue or my book or others
Yeah.
that are starting to think about this now, this idea of moving slower or of thinking about this, there are essays and books that go back to the early 2000s and even the late 90s into some
Yeah.
of this are this culture of speed, right? The culture of speed as an underlying value. And I think it really happened with the Silicon Valley ethos is really where
Mm,
it is, right? It's because in so many ways, what we grew up in sort of starting in the mid 2000s with Zuckerberg and Bezos and sort of the culture of Silicon Valley sort of invading all of business, right?
yeah.
Really, even the slowest moving businesses became focused on moving fast and breaking things,
Yeah.
which of course is a famous Zuckerberg quote.
Yeah.
And getting, ship it, just ship it, live in beta, move fast, all those kinds of business mantras became so focused until the point where you go, and I've literally asked this in questions. I've had discussions with teams, marketing teams, especially, and you say, well, how fast is fast enough? Like,
Mhm.
it's always faster, right? We always have to move faster. We're moving faster. We're moving faster. We have to be there. First mover advantage. We got to get out there
Right.
faster. We got to get out there faster. And the question is like, well, how fast is fast enough? Like how, and it could be, and I think what's happening now is that to your point, a lot of people are starting to notice this is that we're finally going, we've reached peak speed. Like
Totally.
we literally humanly can't go any faster. Therefore, the gains gotten by moving faster are smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, which of course, linearly, they have to be.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
it's one thing to go from 0 to 60 miles an hour, and then you spend the entire rest of your life going from 60 to 61 miles per hour. And it's like that, the gains gotten by that are always a decreasing value. So you have to ask yourself, okay, what's the most valuable thing there? And it's not going, okay, well, just full stop, let's move slower. It's actually, well, what's the difference? Like where are we doing it unconsciously? Like where are we introducing? And just a great example is what you mentioned about the products that are getting shipped that have zero thought put into them. Right?
Right.
We're so wrapped around the outcome of getting something out the door that we forget that we might want to make something meaningful. So it's all about like how fast can you get it out? Who cares if it's good? And
Right.
that I think we've finally reached a point of, as a culture, and this is especially true, I find, with younger people who I'm so inspired by, who are finally going, this is enough.
Yeah.
I'm tapping out. Right. This is enough for me.
That's incredible. And optimistic. Like I'm sharing your, I don't know, your optimism, I guess, for the next generation and just
I'm a
for this
glass is fully
hopefully
full
for
kind of
advancing.
guy. Right.
Yeah.
I'm bullish for the future. I
Yeah.
just want us to be conscious about it. Right. It's like,
Right.
let's be conscious about it. Let's not go just blindly into the future and just sort of, surf the wave. Let's actually step into the river and fight the current for a little bit just to see where we
Yeah.
are. Right. And I use the example in the book of the skip intro button.
Oh
And
yeah.
so
The Netflix.
the Netflix thing, right? So
Yeah.
the very quick story behind that is that in 2017, what the Netflix discovered was that people were fast forwarding like 10 or 15 seconds using the fast forward button. So they went,
Wow.
And you go, wait a minute, 15%, that means 85% weren't doing that. But they made the determination that we need a feature. We got to have a feature
Yeah.
for that to get people to the content faster. And so
Right.
they invented the skip intro button. And so now a lot of people use the skip intro button. Like it's become sort of a, like, why wouldn't you? Like of course
Totally.
it's just convenient, right? But then you think, okay, well then why in 2025 are show creators and showrunners, why are they still creating these lush, beautiful theme songs and great opening credits? Because for them, it's part of the art.
It's
They're
part of the art.
thanking the
Totally.
creators. They're thanking the people who are on the team. They're setting you up in a mood. Like the whole intro to
Yeah.
Andor. Every episode of Andor had an amazing sort of Easter egg about what the music told you the episode was going to be. I mean, it's all in there, right? And so you
Right.
go, well, why would they do that? Because for them, it's part of the art. And then you go, okay. And then there was actually an interesting discussion that was had in 2020 about this, and what young or older people like me who didn't get to skip the intro can think back to like TV themes. Like if I hear the theme song for Star Trek, or if I hear the theme song
Yeah.
from The Tonight Show or David Letterman or Seinfeld, even, right?
Right.
Those are not just cultural memories that I have about the brand of the show. It's cultural memories I have about my childhood.
Wow.
And so that's going to be a lost thing
Totally.
to younger generations who have the skip intro button. Now, that's a totally silly, small example. But if you just think about that for a minute, it's like, are you actually better off skipping the intro? Like, as a human, are you better off? Or did you just mindlessly accept the convenience and speed of a new feature because of course it was there. Of course, speed faster is better. And so just even asking the question, because you may go, yeah, I don't give a crap about the skip intro button. But just even forcing yourself to answer that question is a valuable friction.
Totally. Yeah. Just watching my daughter, who's 7, like watching an episode of Bluey, which are already like very short 7-minute episodes, like in this moment of panic when the skip intro button shows up and I haven't clicked it, like I let it sit, and she has this like dopamine kind of thing where she has to click the button, which makes me a little nervous. I think now,
Yeah, I mean,
thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be, and in my talk that I give on this, there's a great HBO, thing that came from the '80s where every single show would play this, and it's 1 minute and 4 seconds long. You can find it on YouTube if you look for it. It's just look for the 1980s HBO feature introduction. It's 1 minute and 4 seconds long. It's da 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 da. So and it goes on and on for 4 minutes. And it's the time when, as a kid, you would run and get your popcorn.
Oh, interesting.
You would get everybody ready. Everybody's excited. It actually, for the Gen Xers in the room, it always sort of sets off like, chills. Like, I remember this. Something good is about to happen in my life. I'm going to watch this awesome show no matter what it is. And now what we have is da-dung, on Netflix. Like, literally it's da-dung. And there's no emotional connection to that at all.
Wow. Well, how do we apply this to like a CMO who's hearing this, But again, maybe going back to the earlier kind of conversation, they're still accountable to delivering, results. They still have a board kind of that lives in this kind of speed mentality. They haven't quite kind of
Yeah.
read the book yet, heard the podcast. They haven't fully kind of adopted kind of a new model. We're sort of living in between kind of these two, philosophies or beliefs. What are the ways that a marketing team could introduce valuable friction in order to like just reinvigorate the creativity, maybe create some of those memorable moments kind of for their customers?
I think so there's lots of granular examples that I could go through, and I go through a bunch of granular examples in the book.
Look
Everything from
great.
the way to have a meeting, the way to do brainstorming, the way to
Oh,
think about
cool.
campaigns, and all that sort of. But at the highest level, I think just to in the sort of mindfulness of time here, when we think about it, to me, it's about taking the moment to really stop, pause, squeak the shoe on the court, and
Mm,
think about the long-term value of brand. Just getting to everything we just talked about for the last 45 minutes is like getting
yeah.
to the idea of brand, right? So, and I'll give you an example of this. We had the whole sort of astronomer thing, right? The whole
Yeah.
Coldplay video, right? The fast answer, the seamless answer is, if you're thinking from their PR view, their sort of, that sort of mentality was speed. We got to get a message out fast. We have to get
Right.
this, we have to get attention. Any attention is good attention that calls attention away from the thing. So what
Hmm.
do? You focus on speed, you focus on convenience. What's the easiest, fastest thing we can do? Ryan Reynolds shows up at your door and says, by the way, I'll have Gwyneth Paltrow come in and do a thing for you. And you're like, yes, I'll pay whatever money. It's fast. It's easy, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
What nobody said was, is, is that good for the brand long term? Like,
Mm,
are we telling a story that we really want to tell here? Or are we just basic, so yes, they won the moment. They win the moment in a
yeah.
viral moment, but do they win the brand view? Like, are they really building something long term? Are they building something that's
Yeah.
actually going to last? Are they building value in their company, or are they
Mhm.
just winning a moment to win the moment and then and
Right.
then are easily forgotten? And to me, that's the decision making that a CMO has to do when you start thinking is like, no, let's it's easy to win the moment. It's easy to do the clickbait headline. It's fast to get the AI blog post out. It's quick to get the easy, efficient sort of messaging out that doesn't really shake up the world, or does shake up the world and we haven't thought it through yet, or whatever. It's easy and quick to make those decisions, and it's convenient to make those decisions. What's
Right.
harder is to say, let's just let it sit. Let's not do anything for a minute. Let's
Yeah.
take a moment. Let's squeak our shoe. Let's pivot quietly in the
Yeah.
background and do something really valuable that builds long term. And moving into a decision making framework like that is really hard in today's world, but it's also really differentiating in today's world.
Yeah. So what is a way we can kind of respond, come out of break the silence in a way that's aligned to our purpose or
Right.
our values? Like how can we, edify the company in a moment of fracture or schism?
That's a perfect answer, right? Because it is, if you think about it a second, even in the Gwyneth Paltrow thing, right? So they came out with a thing, right? They came out with their content, which was kind of dumb, right? It's just like, meh, it's fine. It's like, okay, they won the viral moment that she
Yeah.
comes out and basically says nothing, right? She didn't
Right.
say, I mean, in fact, that was kind of the point, is she's saying, oh, she's playing dumb. Like, are people talking about something that we should be talking about? She's kind of playing, like the company's like dumb, right? Like, hey,
Right.
this is kind of a silly conversation. Maybe we should move on and talk about how awesome we are. It's like, what if they had taken a beat and instead of getting something out in a week, went, yeah, Gwyneth Paltrow would be really interesting. How do we integrate her into our long-term brand strategy
Yeah.
so that we don't do one piece, we do a year's campaign piece.
Yeah.
Like we integrate her into the brand, and we make
Right.
this, and we find the way to make her relevant to this. Is there a way to do, maybe there's not, maybe they decide there's
Right.
not a way to do that and they do nothing. Or maybe they figure out there's a cool story they could tell there, but they didn't even ask the question. That's the
Right.
problem I have, is it's like they didn't even try.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. Shifting gears a little bit, Robert, I saw you had this post, you filmed a video that answered a question that was very near and dear to my heart, which is this whole like don't build on rented land useful
Mm.
advice? I spent 3 years on this problem, raised some venture capital around this problem, got my own
Yeah,
set of gray hair, I
exactly.
think, under this hat around
Yeah,
this problem.
yeah,
And it was the last time we connected. Yeah, I think
yeah,
I was at Audience Plus, and believing deeply this idea that social platforms and other content networks, anywhere where we don't own sort of that relationship directly with an audience, there's an algorithm kind of throttling access to our audience, are important and necessary and sort of a gateway to the broader audience. But ultimately, what we really want to do is drive those folks into a owned context, whether that's subscribing to your blog or your Substack, whatever newsletter, kind of whatever it is. And the video was incredibly edifying, and I'm so glad you filmed it. Can you just give me, maybe just for this audience, kind of like, with things like AI, we got zero click content in the feed, with zero click search, algorithms changing all the time. What's the right balance today for a team that's thinking about deploying content on rented networks, or it's thinking about building perhaps their own kind of owned strategy? How do you kind of balance these two?
yeah. It's hard. It's probably the most difficult thing that we're dealing with as marketers right now, and am I happy about it? No, I'm not happy about it, right? The fact that, like what Audience Plus was doing back in the day, owned media platforms like your website, your blog, your resource center, your community, those kinds of things. That was our focus for a long time, right? It was
Mm,
our focus for, really, as social media sort of entered the chat, we started really focusing in on how do we build addressable audiences. That was always the key, like build addressable subscription based audiences. Now, that relationship, I believe, is still important today as it ever
hmm
was. But I think what has changed, obviously, is the sort of the growth of zero click and social, right? Delivering the
Yep.
value of the content in the actual platform itself because people just don't click through like they used to. Delivering answers that can actually be answered, and the value is in the actual answer. So public content that is on other people's platforms, because your website's not getting cited, but so
Right.
your content on Forbes or Wikipedia or wherever it's getting cited, you need to have your voice there. So getting content
Yep.
on other people's property. So getting your content footprint as expanded as possible is the new idea. The key is, and where I sort of switched it was, for years, what we really thought of as owned media was our owned media platforms, right? Our
Yeah.
email newsletter, our website, our, maybe it's podcasting is a little weird, but so
Yeah.
those sorts of ideas. So that was the idea. Now I think it's what we're seeing now is a bit of a resurgence of what I would call classic content marketing, old school classic content marketing, which is owned media, period, end of sentence. In other
Hmm.
words, shows,
Right.
series, the idea of the kinds of content that is long form, binge worthy, you
Yes.
know, deep research projects, valuable owned media that is presented and distributed across rented land, right?
Mm.
And so I point to things like what is it called? The Roomies, is it called Roomies?
Okay.
It's the Instagram show done by Built, the financial services company.
Oh,
The
cool.
perfect example of that, right? Fun, interesting, entertaining series. It's like a total series on its own Instagram channel. So
Mm.
people are subscribing to it
To the
and basically
show.
watching it. Right. And so they're treating it like a television show, right?
Right.
But it's delivered through Instagram, not through classic TV. So Built doesn't do any product announcements or any product placement in it yet. But it is brought to you by Built. And so we'll see how they start to integrate some of the credit cards or something like that for the young people, and how you can pay your rent with this sort of, Built
Mm.
thing and all that kind of stuff. But it's an original content series created by that. I look at what somebody like ServiceNow is doing with somebody like Idris Elba, right? Where they're
Yeah.
creating all of these wonderful office hours with Idris Elba on learning your career and doing all that kind of stuff. And that's all done through paid, literally television, but paid also media through paid social media, paid
Yeah.
distribution, as well as social media organically. But then bringing them back into an education center, right? Bringing them back into
Mhm.
like, hey, you should come not just take classes with Idris Elba, you should actually come and take classes from our other instructors as well. So it's really a remix of that
Yeah.
owned and media mix, if you will, sort of focusing in on how we take our owned media, like our
Yeah.
owned content, building in sort of product based IP, like a literally treating it like a product and using rented land to distribute that to get the reach that we need to get. That's sort
Yeah.
of the shift in the metaphor, if you will.
And that's what it's been interesting now launching this show and thinking about, all right, well, we're not hosting, like we barely have a website. I think I have like a landing page for Goldenhour, but it's mostly distributed on LinkedIn for the live, and then YouTube effectively is our
By the way,
like
you win the
content
award for
hub.
the coolest logo ever.
Oh,
Like
thank you.
the logo for Golden Hour is just absolutely
Ah,
stunning. It's
I
one of
appreciate
my
it.
favorite logos ever.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Shout out Brock Lefferts if you're
yeah.
watching this. But the issue, not the issue, the part of the premise of building a platform for this, which by the way I agree with kind of where you've landed on the evolution, was the data that ultimately we would get access to this first party data that YouTube wasn't giving us, that LinkedIn wasn't giving us, and that the data would help us inform decisions. Do you see kind of a is that a trade-off? Do you see a play where like
It,
that comes in later?
this is the bummer part of it, right? This is the addressable audiences, which was such a big focus for us for so many years. It sucks, right? And so
Mm,
it's just harder. It's just harder. So what you have to do is you have to transform that owned media platform into something that is truly worth showing up for, right? In
mm,
other words, the stakes of the game has become much higher
right.
in terms of getting that data, because you're absolutely right. Especially this is especially true in B2B, but even in B2C as well, getting that intent data and getting
Right.
that first party data for addressable audiences is incredibly important, right? So your subscribers to your newsletter, but more importantly, their behaviors, their data. If we want, and this is coming back all the way back around to where we started the show, like if you want to do things like personalization and you want to use
Yeah.
AI to sort of target content and you want to get better at your ad targeting and all that, you need that first party data. Google just won that. They didn't win, but they won. Let's be honest. They won their sort of, their antitrust case. So now
Mm,
third party data, third party deprecation is not going to happen. It's, so
right.
all of that stuff is going to continue. So the value of data is higher than ever, but it's just a harder game now with the getting that, so it makes it more precious for sure.
Right.
And so you've got to treat your content like a product so that people are buying your product, right? In
Yeah.
other words, they're subscribing to your community on your website, like subscribing to your blog. That's not good enough anymore, right?
Yeah.
There has to be something better there, whether it's an online learning platform or whether it's going to be a community or whether it's going to be some sort of show, or it's, the stakes just got a lot higher for
For
the
sure.
owned media platforms to attract that first party data, and getting good at it is going to be much more difficult, but no less
Yeah.
important.
Totally. The other one of the things we ran into, which you might find interesting, like in the sales process for the platform, was this all sounds great, but we've never done a show before. Like we're used to like the content marketing 1.0, like SEO articles, right, and pillar
Sure. Yeah.
pages, like
FAQs. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
FAQs. Like I don't
Yeah.
like video. How do we think about producing
Right.
video content? And so it feels like at least the pulse of the market a year ago, a lot could have changed since then, was almost that it sounds overwhelming to move into the owned media by your definition mentality. Um, do you do you see that, or like what do you think some of the unlocks are maybe for CMOs that are like, hey, we want to be producing shows, but we're just we're maybe not, or that seems overwhelming to us.
Yeah, we can learn a lot from, as we always can as marketers. We can learn, so one of my mantras going back all the way since I started into this content marketing thing has always been the differentiator for us is operating like a media company, not marketing like one, right?
Yeah.
And so media companies have the same problem that every marketing team has. Their salespeople don't get it, and they don't listen, and the CFO wants dollars in and dollars out.
Yeah.
They have all the same problems. The difference of why media companies can succeed here is because they operate differently, right? They look at their
Mm,
content as an asset in the business, as a product, right?
right.
And that's the operational aspect that is so hard for many businesses to get their arms around, right? Is looking at the content they're creating as a product that they're actually putting out into the marketplace. So, as I've been saying recently, you launch an online community on your website, like for your customers or for prospects or for whoever it is, your audience, that community better have the same amount or even more resources that you would put into any one of your product line, because that's what it
Yeah.
is. It is a product. So you have to think in that way. The other layer that I would put onto that is to sort of a lens, if you will, is and where we can learn from media companies is time horizon based ideas, right? In other
Yeah.
words, events are a great thing, right? So
Yeah.
golden hour for you, the event plus the content becomes a thing, right?
Right.
And you start building an audience and a community around that idea of golden hour as an idea. The event is a time horizon based thing. Like
Right.
this show is a time horizon based thing. And so getting that into creating digital scarcity is a really
Mm,
key piece of what we're doing with content these days. And so thinking about things like physical events, digital events, online communities that are going to have events within them that basically once they're gone, they're gone. So
right.
it creates that appointment setting with your audience that it's not just out in the noise somewhere where people have to find it. It's basically, no, you have to get this great content or you're going to miss it.
So
Those are
good.
so looking at it as a product and looking at it in time horizon based, creating some sort of digital scarcity or exclusivity to it are the two real keys.
There's a big conference happening in San Francisco this week around
I've heard.
inbound
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah.
over taking over the city. To me, that feels like the older playbook that, I would say even the folks at Marketo that created the Marketo playbook and others have gone on to say like, hey, inbound, or this concept of marketing automation as we know it, or using content in that way to drive demand, just isn't working. It's breaking today. And again, not trying to pull you into a hot take either,
Oh, I'm
but
always. You don't need to pull me into a hot take. I'm always happy to lend a hot take. Yeah.
well, is inbound, is this still like the primary go to market for marketing teams, or how does own media
It's
fit into
not,
it?
and it's not, and you can see it reflected in it's become a bit like plumbing, right? It is something that you just do, right? I mean, it is,
Mm,
you know what I mean? It's like I mean, we're constantly. I mean, marketing, especially in all the sort of business culture that we've been talking about for the last minutes or so,
yeah.
is we don't even call it marketing. I mean, I had one chief CRO, right, which didn't used to be a thing, but now is a thing, right? We used to call it head of sales. Now it's CRO. So the CRO basically came to me one time at one point and said, "I'm firing all my marketing people. Like I'm getting rid of all my marketing." I'm like, "Oh, well,
Huh.
that's an interesting concept. What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm going to hire a GTM team." And I went,
Okay.
"Okay." So I said, "Tell me what the GTM team does." And he says, "Well, the GTM team, I'm going to have some people focusing on drip campaigns internal that are going to have content with lead magnets that are going to come in, and they're going to hand it over to people who will follow up and become sales focused." I'm like, "You're describing a digital marketing team. Like you're describing a digital marketing team from 2007. So this is not new. Like you can
Yeah.
give it a new skin, but it's the same stuff we've been doing forever and ever and ever." And so I noticed that this week at Inbound, they came out with this new term called loop marketing. I'm
Okay.
hearing this about. So
Haven't gotten to
to
it
me,
yet.
that looks like the same things that we've been talking about for the last 20 minutes. So, none
Oh,
of it seems
interesting.
terribly new.
That's the new sort of
I did
flag to
not. I
carry.
wasn't there. I didn't hear the keynote, but what I'm reading from the articles that people who are there, the posts that I'm reading,
Okay.
basically says that Inbound or HubSpot has now introduced this new concept that they're promoting called loop marketing, and
Loop.
I haven't
Okay.
gotten into the methodologies yet, but it
Yeah.
sounds like a very familiar process to me.
Interesting. Well, I'm excited to check it out. Robert, thank you so much for being a part of this. Again, learned so much from you, today and always. So, where can folks follow along with you? Where can they pick up Valuable Friction? I'm assuming Amazon, wherever
You're
books are
you're
sold.
you're very kind to tee me up for that. So I'm on LinkedIn and would love to connect with anybody on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. It's my social media platform of choice. So I love LinkedIn. So connecting with everybody there. My website is basically seventhbear.com,
Cool.
which is my consulting website, which you don't need to visit that there's nothing there worth like everything, the exclusive things, it's all fine. Valuable Friction you can pick up right now on my website,
Okay.
valuablefriction.com. That would be the best place to pick that up. And yes, it will be on Amazon eventually. It's not yet.
Awesome. Well, we'll get the word out. Thank you so much. And thank you for writing it. Like, I deeply believe that this is sort of a cultural moment. And so we need folks kind of speaking into that and helping kind of shepherd and guide folks into kind of a resurgent, creative kind of marketing team that truly creates meaning in the world.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. It's a book of questions, not answers. So I'm working through it just like everybody else is.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, Robert. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.